So let me know when
live.
we're live.
We're
We
live. Right?
are. All right. Well, welcome to the Financial Security Sales Professionals Show, where we talk about the business of selling annuities, life insurance, healthcare coverage, and employee benefits. My name is Dan Vignal, president of WebPres Videos, and my partner here to my right, your left, is Lloyd Lofton, president of Sales Hero Consulting. And on this week's show, we will be discussing prospecting or lead generation or business development or simply bringing in new business. And specifically, we talk about prospecting and lead generation a lot, but specifically today, we're going to talk about the difference between what is often referred to metaphorically as hunting versus trapping. So, Lloyd, how would you describe or explain the practical difference between the hunting and the trapping methods of bringing in new business?
When I first heard you say that, I thought of the Jerry Seinfeld show where he did his
Of
comedy,
course.
where he did his comedy skit, and he said men are hunters and women are gatherers.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So the two
Yeah.
different prospecting methods is you can either hunt or you can gather. Right. I mean,
Right.
that's kind of the way.
Yeah.
So I think if you take the metaphor of hunting, um, you probably want to know what you're hunting for, right?
Right.
So I'm not a hunter. So anybody's on here know that I'm not really a hunter, like with guns and stuff,
Right.
arrows.
Right.
But if you're going to hunt, I'm guessing you kind of know you got to know what you're hunting for. And when you figure out what you're hunting for, then you got to figure out the behavior of what you're hunting for.
Right.
So my stepdad used to take me fishing, which I hated, but he was pretty good at figuring out the cold water, the warm water, how deep the water was, the time of day fish ate. He was pretty good at putting food at the top of the stream and fishing at the bottom of the stream. He was pretty good at figuring that stuff out. I didn't appreciate it at the time. I just thought it was like the most boring thing I could ever possibly do.
Right.
But I was just doing a coaching session with someone recently, and we were talking about what type of leads they should order, and we talked about direct mail and list. And the person I was talking to was actually surprised that there are some pretty specific criteria that you can use, like if you use direct mail to get what you're looking for. So who are you hunting for? And we I think we talked last week or the week before that. Broker dealers and carriers, in my opinion, uh, do a really lousy job, or at least they don't do the job the way that we used to do the job in recruiting agents, because they recruit you to a product. And then agents and advisors always do the last thing they were trained on. So if the last thing you train them on is a product, then they go home and study the product. They don't make phone calls. They don't go make presentations. They study the product. And then once they get comfortable doing the product, then they go out and hunt somebody to buy that product. And the problem with that hunting philosophy is you got to cast a really wide net to find enough people that are hunting. And then within that net, you got to narrow it down to people that are hunting for that product. But if you hunt for the problems that people have, then under that wide net, you got a lot more people who have similar problems.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're interested and that pain is enough that they want to know how to solve that problem, then you probably can get more people to talk to. That would be my kind of definition of hunting.
And what would be your definition of trapping?
I had a manager, I refer to him all the time, Bob Thurston, and he used to tell me that you prospect where you pay, where you play, and where you pray. And his philosophy is you prospect where your prospects gather. Figure out where they gather at, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about. Marketing into the place that those people gather, like with Facebook, to run Facebook ads. You can actually go in to the audience in Facebook, and you can see that a certain audience of people tend to look at this TV show, read this magazine, or go to this website.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would if you want to address those people, then it's probably a pretty good idea to include those places as part of your audience that you're going to market into, because the people you're marketing to gather there, so they're more likely to see your ad. And so
Yeah.
that would be kind of my definition of doing that.
Okay. So, this is interesting. I mean, one of the reasons I hope that everyone out there who's sitting in and listening to our discussion recognizes over the few shows that we've had so far that Lloyd and I are almost exactly the same age and have similar backgrounds in professionally. But we do have very different perspectives that often lead to the same conclusion. But you heard Lloyd's explanation of the hunting versus trapping. Mine's a little bit different. I think, so let me share an old little anecdotal story about the two bulls at the top of the hill. Do you remember this story, Lloyd? So you got an old bull and you got a young bull. And they're up at the top of the hill and they're looking down into the valley and there's a big herd of cows. And the young bull's jumping up and down. He goes, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, let's run down there and let's get one of those cows. And the old bull says, calm down, son. Let's walk down and we'll get all of them. To me, that is an example of the difference between a hunter mentality, let's go rifle shot at one, versus a trapper mentality, which is let's engulf all of them and market to all of them at the same time and glean from that which ones are ready to buy today. I remember I had a mentor back in San Francisco. He was a top of the table producer, life only guy. And he was the first guy, this is going back in the 80s, he was the first guy to advertise in the Wall Street Journal. And he, I don't know if anybody remembers, but he took out an ad that was probably about, less than half the size of a postcard. And it said a $1 million term rates. And it had smoker, non-smoker, and then it had categories for ages or whatever. And call this 800 number. And he had a small office and he had a staff there. And people would call in and he'd deal with them over the phone. And he'd always start by selling them, these are people who read the Wall Street Journal. So they were buying $1 million, sometimes $10 million term life insurance policies. And he would often, do proper questioning and develop that into maybe a cash value sale instead. But I remember him explaining to me what his strategy was. And he said, here's my ideal situation. He goes, I would love to walk into an auditorium every morning at 8 o'clock with 1,000 people sitting in the auditorium, because this is statistically, and these are your number. I know you're a numbers guy. He says, I'd like to walk into that auditorium and say, all right, anybody who's ready to buy life insurance today, come with me. And the rest of you, I'll see you tomorrow. And he said, statistically, out of that 1,000, there were going to be 2, 3, or 4 people who were ready to buy today. And he goes, that's all I want to talk with, right? So in my opinion, he was sort of working the best of the rifle or the hunter mentality and the farming or the trapping mentality. So he had a big group, but he only wanted to talk to the ones that were ready today. And so what I find in talking with a lot of agents and advisors today is that, we know the holy grail is some sort of lead generation mechanism or some sort of method or system that consistently and reliably brings new prospects into your sales funnel, new people to talk with who are qualified, who want to talk with you. And I call it the Holy Grail. I don't know if anybody's ever found the solution. You can do things like I'm just going to buy leads. So that's a hunter mentality. I'm going to buy leads, or I'm going to do telemarketing, and I'm going to try to secure appointments over the phone just with the people who are ready to talk today or to buy today. What else can you do from you can do referrals, you can do networking, but the hunter mentality is I'm focusing on one person at a time. I'm focusing on bringing somebody in who's ready to buy today, or I think that I can sell today. What I learned, because that did not suit me personally when I was in practice, that it just wasn't me. Maybe I was lazy. I didn't want to work that hard, picking up the phone, making cold calls, and I wasn't as maybe gregarious and doing a lot of networking and business meetings and things like that. So I was looking for something more systematic. And that's when I found what I now call, most of us call, drip marketing. And at the time I was doing, now it's all digital, but at the time it was all, it was, you did it through mail and newsletters and things like that. But what I learned was that you build a database of people who are in your target market, and then you drip on them regularly and offer them various things that might be of interest to them, and let them tell me when they're ready to talk. So I built my list up to, initially it was about 350, and those were probably 50 to 80 of those were clients. The rest of them were either referrals or people I had met or known or in my sphere of influence. And I was sending out newsletters and information by mail, and inviting them to call me. And then gradually I learned that that could be done online. And that's something that we have created at WebPres, which is using our video content to drip to people. And my list eventually got up to around 840. And we would get maybe a 0.5% to a 1% people would call me. And then quarterly, I might pick up the phone and just dial some of these people, because they all knew me. They might not know me very well, but they all knew who I was, and they were receiving mail from me. So I might call them and just say, hey, you've been getting the mail, any thoughts on that, and try to ingratiate myself with them or engage them. But mostly I was getting about 0.5% to 1% who would actually pick up the phone and call me. Since then, what I've learned is with the right content and the right consistency, you can get an average of 1.5% to 2% of your list engaging with your content and requesting more information every week. So then it becomes just a matter of here's how systematic or methodical it becomes. You just keep adding people to your database. You don't even need to call them. I mean, you can get somebody's business card. You can meet them at a trade show. You can, get their name from your kid's Little League game or from a PTA meeting, whatever. It's just a matter of building up that list. And that database is what I would call either farming or trapping. What are your thoughts on that, Lloyd?
I'm trying to think from the audience point of view. I'm trying to think from a producing agent's point of view. And I think what happens, people talk from their frame of reference and people hear from their frame of reference. And I think what happens is that we get hung up on the label, because one of the things you said matches exactly what I say. And you and I have talked about this offline. Mm-hmm. And you've expressed a grave frustration about this.
Well, explain that. Explain what my frustration is.
And that is that your customers don't. I'm going to leave the
Be careful how you say this.
I'm going to leave the descriptive word out of it. They don't call the prospect when they should call the prospect.
Yeah.
And the time they should call the prospect is when the prospect watches the damn video.
Right.
And your system sends them an email that says, hey, Lloyd Lofton just watched the video on the 401k.
Right.
You should call him.
Right.
And your frustration is they don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if they had 10 a day that they didn't call, at the end of the week, they would have 50 or 60 that they didn't call.
Yeah.
And I don't see how that, other than the label of calling, is much different than just calling 50 or 60 people on Monday. But let me back up for a minute. I think that we actually have the exact same philosophy. It's just characterized a different way. Let me talk 1990 language to you. Okay.
Okay.
In 1990, the internet came around in 94. Okay. So late 80s and 90s, here's what I would do. I'd run reader ads in the paper, like $12 to reader ad. It's 2 or 3 lines. Run a reader ad with a phone number, and if you ran it every week in the paper, and you got to know what you're doing, you got to get the tear sheet out of it to make sure it's done right. You got to make sure that the inserts for the small suburbs are in there. But you run your reader ad in there, and over the course of a month, you'd get anywhere from 10, 15, sometimes 20 phone calls. We would use the Good Neighbor program. So people move into the neighborhood, and the church hands out a packet, and it's a discount for shoes, it's a discount at the steak place, and it would be a card from Insurance Broker for You, which was my agency, and I would tell you about the services. And I paid a nominal amount of money to be in there. I also paid for coupons in the coupon book that the schools put out. The students would sell it. The sports team, the high school basketball team, they would sell the coupon books. And in that coupon book, you would get a coaching session with Lloyd. I paid for that. I sponsored PTAs. So I went to the PTAs and I took flyers, and I would sponsor some event the PTA was having. Me and some of my agents would get together and sponsor that. We would go and set up a booth there. So all of that is, if we translated that into 2022 language, it would be drip marketing, right?
Yeah.
Because today, what I tell people, and I just told 2 people this week. Today, what I tell them is get a profile list with phone numbers and email address when available. Upload them in your system. Then create a sequence of email in a funnel and make behavior links in each one of them. And then when they click a link for a free download, schedule a 15-minute video, a 15-minute visit, or watch a video, then the system sends them out another email. So you end up having 30 emails, but the emails go out based on the behavior that you're doing. And one person, they're going to buy a MedSup list, they're going to buy senior CD list, and they're going to buy a list of people that have requested information on estate planning. So if you get 3,000 lists and you set it up properly, then over the course of the next year, you're going to communicate with them all year long.
Right.
They may not call you, they may not schedule an appointment, and you may not talk to them during that year, but all year long, I'm hunting with them. I'm hunting for the right time that the message that they're going to get is going to hit them. And I equate it to this. I tell marketers all the time, when you send emails out, you need to send an email out, the same email 3 times a week, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and once in an evening. Because I get, I don't know, 50, 100 emails, maybe more a day. Now, I come down to my desk at 7 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 6:30 in the morning. I work here till about maybe 8:30. I go up and take a shower. If you send me an email between 8 and 9 o'clock and I come back down, that email has already dropped down 5, 10 spaces in my email. I've got a video to do. I've got a web to do, a Zoom to do. I've got phone calls to make. I get back around at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the email you sent me at 8 o'clock is way down here. So if you don't, it's like the agent who bought a profile list for me one time, back when I ran a career distribution shop. And he calls me up 2 weeks after he buys a profile list. And he says, I want a refund on these lists. Okay, how come? I haven't heard anything bad about the profile list, people turning 65. What's going on? Well, I make my phone calls every Monday and schedule my appointment for the week, and nobody answers the phone. And I said, now let me ask you a question. Did you send everybody on the list a letter and tell them you call every Monday between 9 and 12 so they know you were going to call? And he was almost like incredulous, like I'm a complete moron. Well, of course not.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let me ask you this. What kind of list did you get? Well, I knew because he bought it from me, right? He bought it from our service. He said a turning 65 list. I said, okay, so if they're turning 65, then how old are they? He said 64. I said, well, let me ask you a question. Today, this morning at 9 o'clock, what do you think a 64-year-old is doing? Where do you think they are? And he thought for a minute and he said, they're at home. And he said, they're at work. I said, so they're not at home? He said, no. I said, then why would you call Mondays from 9 to 12?
Yeah. Duh.
So, so, so I think we're saying kind of the same thing. I
Yeah.
think you have to hunt and gather. You have to hunt the prospects that are most likely to buy your product. So agents who say, with new agents, a neophyte, they've been licensed for 3 months, and they say, who do you want to sell life insurance to? Well, everybody. Okay, well, can you afford that list? Like
Yeah.
every consumer in the country, can you really afford that list? Or do you need to narrow that down a little bit?
Yeah.
So you kind of got to figure out a little bit. You got to kind of figure out who you're hunting for.
Right.
But then you set up a system to start gathering. And to me, gathering means build a relationship with them. There's no question that I think that you should call people. Um, we have a little varying view on what the calling might mean. In your system, as soon as they watch a video, the agent and advisor, if they're smart, if they're more serious and curious about making money, if they really want to grow a book of business, and if they want to talk to people at the time they're most interested in your freaking topic, then call when they watch the damn video.
Right.
But if you don't call when they're watching the video, then shut up and don't bitch about the lead.
Right.
So to me, I mean, this was 1980s and 90s. This is how I marketed. I don't have to do that today. Today I can run a Facebook ad, send them to a landing page. On the landing page, I can have a 2-minute introductory video. I can tell them to click here, get a free download. They get that free download. It triggers another email that goes out to them. On that email, they watch a different video. And those emails can go out every 3 days. They can go out every 7 days. I could build a 9-month relationship with that prospect before they give birth to a customer.
Yeah. So have you found that the old advertising or sales adage that you need, 6 to 9 touches with somebody before they're going to be receptive or responsive?
Well, there's studies out as late as September of last year that cover the topic of cold calling, and it talks about an average of 7 to 12 touches. Um, but I'm not a believer, just me personally. I'm not a believer in a one-shot method. I think that you need, like, it annoys the heck out of me. And if anyone who's listening to the call today, type in the chat box and tell us what kind of leads you kind of get. It annoys the heck out of me when someone talks about that they only use direct mail leads or they only use telemarket leads, because what you're doing, you're limiting the scope of your market to only the people who respond to that type of medium. I remember doing direct mail when we used to do the oversized pink or lime green cards
Mm-hmm.
because we thought we were on the false assumption that people took postcards and threw them in the trash can. But if
Mm-hmm.
you read, maybe one of the things we do here, I'll go through this. But if you read the Postal Service's study about people who get their mail, there's a group of people, and they're millennials, that are sorters. They're
Right.
the first ones out to the mailbox. They like to take that mail and sort it. They prefer to get their bill and advertising that way than social media. The people who actually respond to social media are more seniors than they are millennials. But when you actually read those studies, then you realize that what we're doing is we're marketing in the way that makes. I said this, I think, last week. Salespeople sell the way they buy. They figure the price for a product, and in their mind, if it's more than they can afford or more than they would be willing to spend, then they project that onto the prospect and never talk about it. It's like the HSAs. When HSAs came out, salespeople, well, that's a lousy product. I would never show that product. Well, you're a moron. Because there's a market of people out there that actually would buy it. What you're saying is you know more than every other consumer out there. You don't want to buy it, don't buy it. But why would you not show it to your prospect? And the same thing is true about managers. Managers train the way they sell. So if a
Right.
manager's a door-to-door guy, he can't teach you how to sell with social media. He has no clue how to do that.
What do you think is what is the biggest? So let's talk about agents or advisors who are successful, who have been in the business for at least 5 years, who are making at least 6 figures, maybe somewhat more. I know that you've had some experience with most of the people you coach, or I shouldn't say most, but some of the people you coach are very successful financially. Some are less successful, but very capable. Of those people that you talk to, what do you think is is there one common issue that they all face about prospecting or about bringing in new business?
I think it's two things, and I'm going to show you this survey I did on LinkedIn. I'll show you the results of the survey. I think it's two things. I think number one is they don't actually have a strategy. So it goes back to what I said before. They were recruited to a product, long-term care, annuity, life insurance, whatever. But they were recruited to a product, and what bears this out is lead vendors make money by selling their leads, right?
Yeah.
So they're not going to sell leads that people aren't buying.
Right.
So you don't go to a lead vendor and find a lead vendor that says that's marketing their lead programs, help people not pay taxes on Social Security. They don't sell those kind of leads.
Right.
They sell Medicare leads.
Right.
They sell annuity leads, right? Because annuity is what you use as a vehicle to stop the taxing of Social Security. They sell the annuity leads. They sell the lead name based on the product name from the carrier.
Right.
And it's up to the agent to learn the difference. And so the second part of that is agents are looking for a qualified lead. Like your customers, they want, that's great. Somebody watched a video, but we used to call it being clairvoyant, right? I'd do a direct mail, we get 12 leads in, and I look at it, and the first thing I do when I look at the lead, I go, 30013, that's not a good zip code. Then I look at the handwriting, and it's an old fart.
Yeah.
Which, if you saw my handwriting, you think I'm like 99. When I was 20, I've got lousy handwriting. But we'd be clairvoyant. We could determine, like a divining rod, which lead was going to be good. And then we make the phone call and we say, yeah, I saw you sent the card in about final expense. You're not interested in final expense, are you? And what we don't know is that the washing machine just broke, the laundry room's flooded, and the wife's down there. This happened to me last summer. I'm in my office. I'm doing a call with a bunch of people, and my wife's in the kitchen, and the garbage disposal connection into the sink popped off, and freaking water's flooding the kitchen. And I'm on the call. Guess what I did? I told her, give me 5 minutes.
Right.
She was so mad at me.
Yeah.
But we don't get that. They don't get that. So they're looking for they don't have a strategy, and they're looking for a qualified lead. And that's why I say all the time, maybe what you need are more leads to qualify. Maybe you don't need a qualified lead. Maybe you need more leads to qualify.
Would you also say that most agents and advisors are looking for some sort of system, you use the word system, or a method or a process that would produce those leads consistently and regularly and cost effectively, that they'd be willing to write a check for that, just like they do with a lead generation company? They're willing to write the check so that, they could send out, any agent or advisor could create their own direct mail program or create their own advertising program, but they're not direct mail specialists. They're not advertising specialists. They're not marketing specialists. So they say there's a lot that goes on there. I got compliance, and I know how to do design, and I have to do all that stuff. I know that's not what I do. So they want to resource it. They want to outsource it. So they look at companies that promise, we'll generate your leads. These are the kind of leads we'll get you, or we'll do your telemarketing for you, or we'll do your advertising for you, whatever it is. We'll do all that. You write us the check, we'll do it and deliver the results. First of all, just a simple answer. Would you say that most agents are looking for that sort of solution?
Absolutely.
Okay. And why do you think, or two-part question, do you think they're getting that solution? And if they aren't, why aren't they?
Wow. You really put me on the spot today, aren't you? I'll give you a 3-part answer.
Good.
I think they're looking for that solution. I think they get the result they pay for. And I think they don't know how to to put a system together to work.
Mm-hmm.
So they go with a direct mail company because the product they were trained on is an annuity. So they buy annuity leads. But nobody trained them how to order a direct mail lead. So nobody told them, we'll take a Medicare supplement lead, okay? So they order a turn in 65 list, right? They do a Medicare supplement direct mail program for people turning 65. But nobody ever told them, hey, in any one zip code, in any 1 month, there's only a certain number of people turning 65. So you should probably have at least 3 zip codes to get, a big enough pool of people to get a big enough response from. And what agents will tell you is, well, yeah, but I don't want to drive that far. That's what they tell me all the time. I don't want to drive that far.
Right.
Okay, but let's actually pretend that you. This can sound really sarcastic, so forgive me. But let's actually pretend you were smart enough to pass the insurance license. So you have enough common sense to know that only so many people are turning 65 in any one zip code. Right. So unless you're going to direct mail into that zip code every freaking month for a year, you're only going to get a small response. Then the second thing that they're not told is get the non-responder list. So they'll spend whatever it is, $500, $700. They'll spend whatever it is in a direct mail program, and they don't ask for the non-responder. And then they get back 8 or 12 cards. And they go, well, why do I need a non-responder list? Well, here's an idea, being sarcastic again. Let's say you call, and out of 12 cards, 5 people schedule an appointment with you. How about if you go with the non-responder list, go to the zip codes and the addresses around the house that you've got the appointment with. You've got a copy of the direct mail card. How about before, after the appointment, you actually go knock on the door with the card they got and introduce yourself. You already spent the time, resource, and money to get to the house. I mean, you're there. Why not? Oh, I didn't think about that. And by having a non-responder list, you can upload it into your system. It's 2022. You can upload it in your system, and you can actually start doing some of your own mailing to them, right? And how about get with phone numbers when available? People think that do not call list means that these numbers aren't any good. They don't realize that do not call list means that there's a group of people out there. Now, just get this. This is Lloyd's philosophy. It doesn't mean it's true, but there's a group of people out there who recognize that their tax dollars were spent for the federal government to build a website to enter their name, address, and phone number that allows insurance agents to go check it so they can learn a group of people who prefer to buy in person. A do not call list doesn't mean you can't contact them. It means they don't want you to call them in person. Right. Oh, I didn't think about that. And now in 2022, you can get a do not call list. I mean, you can get a direct mail list with non-responders, phone numbers when available, and now you can get with email addresses. The difference in cost is about $30. So, the 1980 and 1990 days, you can still do this, but that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a qualified, they don't have a strategy. They're looking for a qualified lead because they don't know how to qualify people, and they don't really have a plan to follow through with it. So I think they should have a service like yours. I think they should have an email functioning service. I think they should include telemarketing. I think it should be based on their budget, not on the lead type. It should be based on what the outcome is they want. Here's a survey I did online. It should be based on the outcome you're looking for, and then who responds to that type of lead. Like telemarket leads is probably more for car insurance, health insurance, things like that. I mean, I'm sorry, internet leads. Telemarket leads might be for a different type of product, but look at email marketing, 13%. But if you look at the surveys that are out there, people prefer to get the initial information in email.
Mm-hmm. So what you described are, I know you only described one, but there's a lot of different ways for an agent to prospect. And yet most of them say, I don't have a consistent way to generate leads. And I think you would agree that, excuse me, that a lot of them are very successful, but they still don't have a consistent lead generation program. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah, and so what I've heard in talking with a lot of agents and advisors regarding a lead generation system, whether it's buying leads or subscribing to a system or paying some vendor to generate leads for them, I hear two things. One, I don't have the expertise, either the technical savvy or the whatever it takes to do that, to do all the system. And or what I sometimes read between the lines is, I don't want to do that. That's a lot of work. It's not fun. I like selling. You know, everybody loves to sell. I love to talk to people. I like selling. I don't want to do any marketing. So I'd rather pay somebody to do the marketing. So that's one answer. The second answer is, I have tried, and this is going to people who've been in the business for 20, 30 years, but even people who've been in the business for 10 years will say, I have tried every vendor. I've tried number of lead generation sources, and I've tried direct mail, and I've tried advertising, and I've tried webinars, and I've tried all this stuff, and none of it works, or none of it has worked for me. What would you say to somebody like that?
I would send them to the $1 Million Roundtable website and have them click on last year's winners and the top of the table winners and ask this question: where the hell did they get leads from?
Yeah.
I mean, go to look at the $1 Million Roundtable for last year and look at the people that have been in the business 3 years or less. Because here's what we were talking about numbers earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like commonalities. And so what's true is that every insurance agent takes a state test and gets a state license, right?
Right.
That's true for every agent.
Yep.
Every agent contracts with a carrier, either through an IMO or through a broker dealer, but they contract with a carrier, right?
Right.
So they have the same products to market, and they have no control over the rates. The carriers control the rates. So they have the exact same rates as any other agent has to market. And they order leads from the exact same lead vendors that any other agent would order from. I mean, you can go to Google and type in direct mail leads, and there's only so many direct mail lead companies out there in the country that do insurance. So my question would be, if someone made the $1 Million Roundtable, and they done it repeatedly, 10 years or more, and they're in the table of the top, or top of the table, even top of the table people still use seminar companies. Mm-hmm. So if leads don't work, how come these agents are successful? I don't know that leads don't work. Maybe the way you're working the leads aren't working for you. Or maybe the commitment you're making to build your business is flawed. Maybe the strategy you're using is flawed. Maybe you're one of those agents that you're looking to buy mortgage leads. Maybe that's your strategy, mortgage leads. And maybe you make $50 or $75 or $100,000 a year selling mortgage insurance, and you can't figure out how to break that higher level. And what you didn't notice is that they also have a health insurance plan and a critical illness, and they've got 2 annuities in the house. And some moron like me came in behind you and picked that business up you left laying on the table.
Right.
Maybe your strategy is, I only do this type of business.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is the prospects actually buy all kind of business.
Yeah. You know, it's listening to you say that, one of the things that occurs to me, and this is aimed at our audience, so everybody out there listening to us right now, if you are, and I'm going to give you a good example that hopefully you can relate to, but if you feel that at any time, either Lloyd or myself are in any way disparaging the profession of insurance sales professional, please understand that is not our mission here. If you are struggling, if you are struggling to go to the next level, if you're struggling just to make ends meet, those are two different scenarios. But we want you to understand that we're here not so much to describe why you're struggling or why you're failing, but we want to help you resolve that. So we don't want to just say, hey, you're failing because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Well, that's obvious to you and to anyone. What we want to say is, why are you failing? Why are you not doing the things you know you need to do? Or do you not know what you need to do? And that's what we want to share with you. I want to share a story that I think I shared with you, Lloyd, earlier this week. I was talking with a good customer of ours. Well, a good customer. He's been with us for a long time, and he's been using our drip marketing program for about 6 months now. And he just said, "Hey, I want to talk with you about what I'm doing and how it's working. I'm not sure I'm using it right, and um, I'm not. I don't know that I'm getting any business out of this." And I said, "So great, let's talk." So he tells me that he's a good producer. He's producing somewhere between 200 and 300, maybe a little bit more, 350 in commissionable premium commissions each year. That's between annuities and life. So he's a successful producer. He has a secretary or an assistant. He's got a good, he's got a database. He's got a CRM. And so he does a lot of the things right. And I said, okay, so tell me what you've got. And you're running your campaign. And he says, well, I've got about, I think he said 800 people in running one of the campaigns that we have for him. And I said, so how's that going? And he says, well, I really haven't had any time to work it. And I go, well, what do you mean time to work it? And he says, well, I'm getting viewing notices from the people in my list who are watching the videos. And I said, well, so what are you doing when you call them? And he goes, I know, Dan. He goes, it's on me. He goes, but I haven't called any of them. And I mean, almost incredulously, I said, you've been doing this for 6 months? I said, how many leads, how many responses have you got? And he says, about 150. I said, you have 150 people who are interested in products you sell, and you just refuse to call them? And he kind of chuckled and he said, yeah. And I said, why? He just says, I'm busy. And I go, all right, I get that. And you're making good money. But if you're that busy and you're making the money that you want, why are you running this campaign? What possible purpose? And he just laughed and he said, no, he goes, I want to take my business up a notch. I want to get, yeah, you're telling me you want to grow, but you won't use the tool that you bought to grow your business. Yeah. And it was just, I get those conversations.
My response to that is either recruit an agent in and feed those leads to them, or sell the damn lead. I mean, yeah. Let me comment on what you said before. Yeah, nothing that we're saying, me in particular, is meant to disparage any one individual. If you hear frustration or irritation or any of that, at least in my tone of voice, it's because the crap that agents are being told.
Yes.
It's not because necessarily what you're doing. I get that you're doing what you're told to do. I talked to an agent earlier this week whose upline told him to do something that, in my humble opinion, is one of the stupidest things you tell a new agent in the freaking world.
Yeah.
And in my zeal of carry on the conversation, Ken Lake said, tell him he can send those warm leads to me and I'll call them.
Right. Yeah.
But in my zeal of talking to him about this, I told him, and I won't go through the whole story, but I told him the only person that would tell this guy to take his 20,000 that he has left and put in a mech is a product pusher.
Yeah.
Because it's just, so any irritation do you hear is because of what you guys are being told. Yeah. That, and again, you do have to have a certain responsibility to take off the blinders and running your business. It is a business. If carriers and broker dealers recruit you into a product and lead companies market a product, there's a message there. There's a connection there. And you should know, and if you don't know, I'm here to tell you, people don't buy products, right? They buy solutions. There was a study done by Impact Media 2 years ago that 70% of people make a buying decision to solve a problem, and only 30% of people make a buying decision to gain something. So if your marketing message is I can save you money, you're not talking to 70% of the market out there.
Right.
They want to solve a
Right.
problem.
Right.
And so
Right.
leads are a necessary, but let's talk about what you talked to. This guy's not, he's getting the leads, got over 100 of them, but he's not calling them, right?
Right.
You know what Amazon did that was brilliant, and Target does this. In fact, all the big guys do this. They have algorithms in place. And what they do is they take people who put something in their shopping cart and abandon the cart. It's the abandoned cart algorithm.
Right.
And then they back market to them related products.
Mm-hmm.
And they get about a fifth of the people. I don't know the exact numbers. I've got the report. I could find it. They get about a fifth of the abandonments come back and actually make a purchase.
Yeah, I heard it's actually higher than that. It's like 37%. Yeah.
It may be. It may be. Yeah, I mean, it's. But here, what's funny is that we'll sit back and we'll say, that Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos. We'll say these guys are really brilliant. Well, regardless of what your politics are, if you think what they're doing are smart, here's an idea. You do it.
Yeah.
So that's why you get the non-responder list with phone numbers when available, with email when available. That's why you set up a funnel. That's why you make in the older days, I don't say old days, in the older days, yes, I sat down every Monday and made 100 phone calls. I scheduled 15 appointments for the week because there wasn't the internet. There wasn't any other way. You'd show up to a house and the wife would be gone. The husband would be there. The husband would be there. The wife would be gone. You'd have a one-legger. We were stupid enough to present to a one-legger, which is like taking an untrained sales professional to go out and market your product to his wife. I mean, how stupid is that?
Right.
But we didn't have any other way of doing it. We didn't know any other way of doing it. Today we have a whole plethora of things that we can do. Great services like yours. There's a ton of services out there, but we need to put together a strategy, and then any strategy needs to have enough time for success to work. And then just because you put a strategy in place doesn't mean that you're not responsible for monitoring that strategy.
Yeah.
So you can't just order leads from a vendor. Yes, they want you to get results. If you don't get results, you're not going to reorder from them.
Right.
But there's a reason they have refund policies in place.
Yeah.
So you need to be good at ordering leads, understand how they work. If you order internet leads, don't get batch leads. That means they've been sitting there all day long and they send them out at 11 o'clock at night. How do you batch them or send them out in real time?
Right.
We batch them. We make sure you get them once a day. So the lead that came in at 8 o'clock in the morning, you get at 10 at night, is old, and you sold it to 5 other people. I mean,
right. There's a couple of things that I want to be sure that we don't gloss over. And, we have both stated that, look, we are here to help agents and advisors at all levels. And this discussion is going to we're going to open it when in a little while. We'll open it so that there's more dialogue going on and we can answer real case issues. But there's some fundamentals that both Lloyd and I feel very strongly about. One is that, in fact, his business is built around it, is that when we come into this business, this industry is horrible at training. I don't care. I mean, there are some that do a little better job, but nobody does a good job. And 90% of the industry does not train agents well. So don't blame yourself necessarily. If all of your training has come from your IPO or your IMO, FMO, or your brokerage general agent or your managing general agent, and they have told you one way to do things and it's not working for you. It's not unusual. We all went through it. The things that they teach, and they may have been teaching them for 40 years, do not necessarily translate in today's market. And I think it's also important that even though we're older guys with a lot of experience, we need to be very careful, you and me, Lloyd, that we don't continually refer back to what we did in the 70s or 80s or even the 90s. I would even say that anything done in the last 20 years since the turn of the century is not necessarily relevant today. we need, even though the average age of agents and advisors is well into the mid to upper 50s, and maybe you don't feel that you're technologically capable or savvy or comfortable with technology, make no mistake about it. You may be able to get by a little for a while without some technological applications, but you are doomed to fail. You've got to use some, and you are already you're using a cell phone, you're using a computer, you're doing some of these things. So what we're saying is you've got to look at what is happening today, and you have to listen to other successful agents, not to emulate them exactly, but to draw from them what was their strategy, as Lloyd says, or what was their rationale for doing what they're doing. So if somebody says, I'm writing, $20 million of annuities per year, and I'm doing it all through workshops, and I do all the workshops in senior centers. And this is why I'm doing it. This is I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, or I live in Delray, Florida, and I've got a big retirement population. There's senior recreation centers all over the place, so it's easy for me to do that. That works for me. Don't necessarily go out and do exactly what they do. Think about what is it why they did what they did, and then apply it to what you want to do. So if you say, well, I don't live in a retirement community, but I'm still selling annuities. Okay, who's your target market? And you identify that. So it's not everybody. If you live in Kansas City, it's not 1.2 million people that are in your target database, that are in your target market. There are just people in a certain age group and perhaps a certain demographic. And maybe you work better with women. Maybe you work better with men. Maybe you work better with people who are corporate executives who are retired. Maybe you work better with professionals like doctors who are retired. So you need to come up, and I know Lloyd is big on this, and it's super important that you create a strategy around your personality, your style, your proclivities, the way you want to do business. Because if you, and we use the term business, that's the third item that I want to say. We are going to always talk to you not about being a sales agent or even an advisor. We're going to talk to you about running your own business. You may be the only employee, but you still need to run it as a business. And as such, you need to look at every investment you make in your time, in your money, in your effort, as what sort of return I am getting on that. And every businessman knows if I invest $1, whether that dollar is literally monetary capital or it's my time capital or my effort capital, whatever it is, if I can't measure the return on that, then something's wrong with what I'm doing. You should be able to measure the return on every investment you make, and that is part of running a business. Also part of the running business, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Lloyd, is not doing what somebody else tells you to do. You need to think for yourself. You need to run your own business. You want to think of yourself as the CEO or the president of your own business, then you damn well start thinking on your own and not listening to what everybody else does, but figure it out on your own. And that means you got to think about it, and you got to feel, and you got to talk to people like Lloyd and talk to people like me who can help coach you through your own decision-making process. Lloyd?
One thing you said about having a business mind. I'm in Macon, Missouri for a week. I've got a TCR3 Plymouth, and the front axle breaks on a Tuesday. I checked in the hotel Sunday night. The front axle breaks on Tuesday. I walk back to the hotel, to the motel, not a hotel, motel, and my manager's there, and I tell him my axle broke. What am I going to do? And he's giving me $1,000 worth of renewal cards. I'm getting 8% commission, right? I said, what should I do? And he said, quote unquote, I'm going to use a bad word here, so don't take offense where offense isn't meant. He said, I don't give a damn what you do. I'm running a business here. You just need to make sure you get that business done. And that's the first time it occurred to me. Yeah, so am I.
Yeah.
and I rented a car. And I rented a car, and at the end of the week, I drove that car home to St. Charles, Missouri. And a week later, I drove that car back and picked up my car that was fixed, and I made money.
Yeah.
And from that day forward, I don't take my wife's car for the oil to be changed. I don't fix flat tires. I don't fix plumbing. I'm not a plumber. I'm not a gardener. I'm not a roofer. I'm none of those things.
Right.
If that stuff needs to get done, I hire someone to do it, and I do what I'm good at doing, and I run my business.
Right.
And that's the same thing that we're talking about with leads. I'm responsible for the leads I get. It's my and I know it's hard. I know it's really hard to get good information, um, but we're going to give you good information on how to order leads, and what to hold the lead vendors accountable for, and what to hold yourself accountable for.
Or
I believe,
maybe not even buy lead. Maybe leads are not for you. Maybe there's other ways to do this. And that's what we're trying to say, is that we're going to bring to you a lot of discussion on different ways to do this, and telling you and encouraging you, it's your business. Run it your way. And there are a number of ways to do that for every person who's in business. Make it you're unique, make your business unique, but run it as a business.
yeah. I mean, as a straight commission agent for years, well, my manager who trained me told me, it's whatever your check at the end of the week said. There's 3 numbers there, and then a dot, and then 2 other numbers. Whatever that says is exactly what you were worth that week.
Yeah.
And that was a really harsh lesson to learn, because some weeks I felt like I was worth less than what the number on the check said.
Yeah.
But in reality, it represented the result of my effort for the week. And if we don't have a good business plan to get together, if we don't have a good marketing plan together, then it's really hard to have sufficient activity.
Yeah. We are up against our 1 hour time frame
we need to
here.
end this for the end of our show. Thanks for being on with Lloyd and Dan. I do want to leave you with one message. What are we going to talk about next week?
I was thinking about, I would love to get some feedback from our audience as to what they'd like us to pursue. I think that maybe we should talk. I don't know, maybe it's just an easy one, and it's not for everybody, but maybe we should talk about one of two things: either buying leads from a lead vendor, and not just buying them, how to work them, right? That's what we want to talk about, are practical systems and methods that you develop that are part of your business. So you can buy leads if you get really good at processing those leads.
Right.
The other thing that we could, and maybe we can do both of them at the same time, maybe we do them separately. The other thing I'd like to talk about is doing workshops, because I think the leads often appeal to somebody who's selling final expense or mortgage or term insurance or Medicare supplements. But workshops tend to go more for people who are doing planning, whether it's retirement income planning, estate planning, business planning. So do you want to do one of those next week? Or I think we should just pick one, don't you?
Yeah, why don't we talk about how to work leads?
Okay.
And then maybe that will lead into the next week of doing workshops.
Okay.
So the last thing I want to say, this is from Dan and I both, to everybody that's on here, this call today. You are a highly trained licensed professional, and your prospect will see exactly what you see in the mirror. So today, tomorrow, and every day, if you look in the mirror and you don't see a highly trained licensed professional, neither will your prospect. It's incumbent on you to recognize that you bring value to the table. And that value is no more than the time you demand from your prospect. So you are a highly trained licensed professional. You don't need a prospect's permission to be a highly trained licensed professional. So thanks for being on the call this week, and we'll catch you guys next week. You can always chat in here. We still follow this after the show. So put your suggestions in there and we'll follow it.